here on the
Anyway, now let's look at some real evil shit.
factory floor this morning of Blue Origin, and we are here with Jeff Bezos, the founder of Blue Origin, also, of course, founder of Amazon. It is great to see you. This is remarkable.
Looking like doo-doo, my man. Jesus Christ.
By the way, just the scale of it. We've been talking about it all morning, but of all the people that we could talk to about everything that's going on in the country right now, in the economy, AI, jobs, space, we want to talk to you. And there is so much to talk about. We're going to touch on that, policy, politics, and so much more. But one of the topics that I thought we should talk about, and maybe even start with, is these days it feels almost impossible to pick up a newspaper without reading a headline about wealth in America, about the billionaire class, about wealth inequality and policy and everything else. And it's taken a uniquely critical turn, I think. And I'm so curious, before we even get into everything else, what you think about that right now.
Well, first of all, Andrew, I'm glad you're asking the question. I think it's a really important topic. And I think it's an important one to discuss because I see the same thing you do. You know, you see it in a bunch of headlines, you see it in a bunch of places. And I have been thinking about, like, what is driving this? Because it does seem different from 10 years ago. And I think what's going on is that it's kind of a tale of two economies. So you have a bunch of people in this country who are doing really well, but you also have a bunch of people in this country who are struggling to pay rent and groceries. And so what's happening here is politicians are using the kind of age-old technique. So there's this tale of two economies, and they're using this age-old technique of, picking a villain and pointing fingers. But the problem is that doesn't solve anything. And so, like, if you want to help the group of people who are struggling, you have to figure out real root causes and solutions, and that takes skill. It's like if we have a problem at Amazon, the way we would fix it is we would go in and we'd do the 5 whys and we'd try to get to a root cause. We'd try to find a root fix.
Is this what unfettered profit does to your body? You don't stay human? Dude, I don't even know what the f going on with this guy. But yes, everybody knows the most depressed person after Twitch streamers, of course, is the billionaire. Number 1, Twitch streamers. Number 2, billionaires. Twitch streamers basically also billionaires in many ways, trapped inside of billions of minds, having permanent occupation. Oh, by the way, Jeff Bezos is a big advocate of this whole, like, let's cut taxes for people making less than $100,000 a year method, which is insane. And of course, the reason why it's insane is because that's how everything gets funded. The point shouldn't be to further erode the government coffers. It should be to make Jeff Bezos pay a comparable amount of his, yearly growth of, not income necessarily, because these guys also pay themselves like $1, but his yearly net worth growth in wealth. Yes, the United States is the most progressive tax system in the world. The top 1% pay 40% of taxes. The bottom 50% pay 3% of taxes. We can make it even more progressive by zeroing out taxes on the bottom half. It's a small amount of the total tax revenue, but very meaningful to people in this group. The bottom 50% pay 3% of taxes. I'm willing to entertain that if the top 1% pay literally more than 40%. How about that? Get the top 1% to pay 100% of the taxes. Reactions from Zoran and Tom Steyer. I know a few teachers in Queens who would beg to differ. Yeah, Bezos on CNBC. You could double the taxes I pay and it's not going to help teachers in Queens, I promise you. Yeah, Tom Steyer, billionaire, says, this is bullshit. I promise you, tax billionaires invest in schools. Nick Shirley. I know a few teachers and New Yorkers who will benefit from less fraud. You don't know any teachers, dog. You were homeschooled. So no, you don't know any teachers. Shut the f up. And we know you don't know any teachers. Brilliant, common sense argument. We need more of this.
We'll talk about, making the tax system more progressive. How about we start by having a nurse in Queens not pay taxes? Why is somebody at all? Why is a nurse in Queens who makes $75,000 a year paying more than $1,000 a month in taxes? That's $1,000 a month that could help with rent or.
What is this? Somewhere out there, there's a dude making $45,000 a year and he absolutely believes this nonsense down to the bone. Somewhere out there, there's a dude making $1 million a year who preaches to his audience about the benefits of communism and socialism while he profits from capitalism. And they believe his nonsense down to the bone. The benefits. You like the benefits of capital. This is nonsense. I'm Nick Thurley. Bleh.
And then when we fix it at the root, you're fixing it forever. It's a real solution. And what we don't do, because it doesn't work, is just point fingers and blame people. It might feel good for 10 seconds, but doesn't accomplish anything. And so what could you really do? So like, I started to ask, do you have a plan? I have some ideas. I have some places to start. So, I started thinking about this and doing some research. A nurse in Queens who makes $75,000 a year pays more than $12,000 a year in taxes. Does that really make sense? So people talk about, making the tax system more progressive. How about we start by having the nurse?
This is genuinely a distraction. It is a way to just say there's no increase of taxes, right? You will never have an increase in taxes, which means he's never getting his taxes increased. Billionaires, they're not the smartest, but they obviously exercise their self-interest quite a bit. And they're smart enough to recognize that right now there is tremendous appetite to not only tax these guys, but maybe even punish them, right? And to be fair, chipping away at their net worth even a little bit is the biggest punishment of all time. You might as well throw them in prison at that point from their perspective. So they recognize that there is a real appetite for this, and people are saying it, right? People are demanding it. And some politicians, like Bernie Sanders, are leaning into those demands. So what do? You pull off the ripcord and you lean into, how about no taxes for people making less than $100,000? How about that? Don't you think that's a better way to help the working class? No, the best way to help the working class would be to tax you, motherfucker. We arrived at this problem because we have been slowly but surely chipping away at taxes. Of course, Elon Musk is in agreement with Jeff Bezos. That's your boss, bro? I know.
Queens not pay taxes. Why is somebody at all? Why is a nurse in Queens who makes $75,000 a year paying more than $1,000 a month in taxes? That's $1,000 a month that could help with rent or groceries or anything. And so, and by the way, do you know what that all adds up to? The bottom half of income earners in this country pay only 3% of the taxes. It's only 3%. We can find 3%. So we don't have, it's a small amount of money for the government, that. And really, and the more I thought about it, to me, it's kind of absurd that we're doing this. We shouldn't be asking this nurse in Queens to send money to Washington. They should be sending her an apology. It really makes no sense.
Okay, but then on the other end, the question is, should you be paying higher taxes to pay for the 3% component part of this that you think is going to need to be paid for, if not more than that, given the debts we have?
It's certainly a perfectly valid policy debate, right, to say, do we want an even more progressive tax system? So, the line that gets quoted all the time is, the wealthy should pay their fair share. Right. And we can argue about what the fair share is. That's a policy debate. That's okay. But the vilification is the thing that's just the distraction. And by the way, if you really are being honest about it, we don't have a revenue problem in this country. We already have the most progressive tax system in the world. The top 1% of taxpayers pay 40% of all the tax revenue. The bottom half pay only 3%. We have already, and I think it should be zero. I don't think it should be 3%. Right. I think it should be zero. So we'd be making it more progressive that way. We actually have.
Yeah, it's not even sneaky. He's just straight up saying there's no world where taxes get increased for people like myself. But he also knows that there's unlimited appetite by Americans to cut taxes even further. which of course, once again, is the never-ending cycle of destroying the existing social safety nets. And lo and behold, the destruction of social safety nets and the state comes along with wonderful new profit opportunities. It comes along with privatization. So you advocate for more tax cuts. Not only does this benefit you personally, right? Even if you're not getting any tax cuts as a billionaire, you've gotten the unlimited tax cuts, which, by the way, for Jeff Bezos, I mean, what the fuck can you tax? Let's be real. I mean, he doesn't, his income is like, his W-2 form is like 70 grand. Okay. He doesn't actually make money off income. That's not a thing. He has assets. He has ownership over Amazon. And then he uses that asset as leverage to go and get incredibly cheap loans that he never actually ever has to pay. Right. And every now and then you can get maybe a modicum of a payout when he has to pay the interest on the loans that he's taken. Right. Obviously, he can't default. Right. So because if he does default, then, they can seize his assets. Never going to happen. So every now and then he'll like liquidate something. Right. And in that process, then he pays a little bit of tax. But that tax is obviously still a lower percentage than the tax he would pay for straight income. There's that part too, right? And ultimately, it's nothing. Is nothing. In the grand scheme of things, it's nothing. This process is called buy, borrow, die.
A spending problem. And that's a skills issue. I mean, let me give you an example. The New York City school system, right? They spend $44,000 per student. $44,000. That's 30% more per student than other big cities like Chicago, LA, and Boston. And it's 3 times more than Miami and Houston. And by the way, New York City doesn't get better outcomes. So listen, let me just say, if we ran Amazon the way New York City runs their school system, right, your packages would take 6 weeks to arrive. We'd have to charge you a $100 delivery fee. And then when the package did finally arrive, it'd have the wrong item in it anyway. We can't, that's a skills issue, Andrew. It's not about, it's just competence. I mentioned my optimism a minute ago, and we should definitely talk about that because I think there's so many people who are afraid that AI is going to take their job. I think that there's going to be a labor shortage.
First of all, capitalism necessitates that cities do run like businesses, and that's unironically the problem. Except if USPS didn't exist, the last mile delivery wouldn't exist, which Jeff Bezos relies on, because private delivery services don't have any obligation to deliver to routes that are hard to track. USPS, on the other hand, is not a profitable business. It's not supposed to be profitable at all, as a matter of fact, because it's supposed to work. That's why all these assholes rely on the U.S. Postal Service for their last mile delivery. UPS ain't going up the mountain. USPS is. Yeah, through rain or snow. The U.S. Postal Service is one of the best examples of a government-provided service that simply has to work. It can't exist as a profitable entity because many of the routes that they go down, where they deliver medicine, for example, no private company would ever do it because it's not profitable. And remember, these demons want to take that away too. They want to take that away too so they can privatize that too so they can make more money off that. And who gives a shit if poor people living in rural areas don't have anything, any service to deliver them these goods that they need to survive? It doesn't matter because these guys don't give a f. They only care about profit. It's that simple. The government has an obligation to take care of its citizens, at least in theory. And even in a capitalist government like the one that we live under, like the one that we exist under, there are still certain institutions that just have to work. The U.S. Postal Service is one of those institutions. One example I can use is Walmart, this behemoth that relies heavily on government subsidies, both tax breaks and tax benefits that they receive, and then also on top of that, welfare and food assistance that they rely on, that their own employees that they underpay can still use at Walmart. Now, when Walmart comes into town in places that are forgotten, people celebrate. They're like, oh, the price of food is going to be cheaper. This is going to be more cost effective. But what ends up happening is Walmart ends up sucking up the entire consumer base, and it kills all the local businesses in the neighborhood, all the mom and pop shops that have been around for 20, 30, 40 years. But eventually, Walmart, when it's no longer as profitable, will just f off. So then what do? You lived in a town your whole life, and your parents lived there before you. There was a local grocery store that made things work. It wasn't the cheapest, but you knew the grocer, right? It was a small business. But then Walmart came around and knocked that business out because the business could not compete with the prices of Walmart. But when Walmart becomes unprofitable, they f off. Now your town is a food desert. Now your town doesn't have any options whatsoever. Now you have to go to the town over to a dollar store or another Walmart. Now you're spending more money on gas. Now there is an invisible cost, an additional cost. It's hurting your wallet all the same. Even if the food prices were more costly in the local grocer that you could go to, now you're paying even more money to go to the Walmart. That's a town over. Now you're spending more time on travel. These are the invisible ways that poor people get f***ed over because of capitalism, because of the interests of profits. That's how it works. But because it's a part of the system's design, and because many people have decided that it's the best possible system, is the only system that we can exist under, it's everything that we've ever known. And once again, like I said, because of the invisibility of it all, the invisibility of that cruelty, you seek out other reasons as to why you're experiencing this economic struggle. And then a guy that wears a red tie and a suit on the TV says, it's actually because we're taking all this money that exists out there in the ether and we're spending it on scary brown people. We're spending it on transgenders. And then the other side, who you may have trusted at some point in time, is telling you, well, things aren't that bad. Things aren't that bad. We don't have to we'll maybe improve a little bit, but obviously we can't go after Walmart. We can't tell you the truth about what happened and why you're currently struggling. So we'll just tell you the other side is evil and bad and leave it at that. New research suggests that the company makes the communities it operates in poorer, even taking into account its famous low prices. Walmart imposes in the form of not only lower earnings, but also higher employment in the wider community outweigh the savings it provides for shoppers. On the net, they conclude Walmart makes the places it operates in poorer than they would be had it never shown up at all. Sometimes consumer prices are an incomplete, even misleading signal of economic well-being. Yeah, this is true as well. When Amazon pays poverty wages, it forces their workers to rely on social safety nets, putting more of a financial burden on taxpayers, all while Amazon profits. We don't talk enough about how much taxpayers are forced to subsidize corporate profits in this country. It's true.
As a result. So
let's go there then.
Yeah.
I wanted to stay in space, but let's go to that because
we can come back. We can be in space too, or whatever you want.
But that's fascinating because I don't know if you saw Eric Schmidt gave a commencement address over the weekend.
Yeah.
And the students were booing because every time he mentioned AI, they were booing because I think they're deeply fearful and worried about whether they're going to have a job.
Yeah. Well, and the reason they're afraid of that is because all these smart people keep saying that. So there's so many smart people, and they are smart, and they're saying, oh my God, there are going to be no more radiologists because, the AI can read x-rays better than a radiologist can. And there are going to be no more software engineers because AI can program better than a software engineer can. These people are wrong. So what's really going to happen is that it's going to elevate all of these people, and it's like you've been digging. Let's say you're a software engineer,
right?
The analogy I give you is you've been digging out a basement for your house with a shovel, and somebody's about to hand you a bulldozer. You should be so happy if you're digging the basement to your house and somebody says, "Hey, how about this? I have a tool here that's gonna," and there. What's really going to happen is we're going to have so much productivity in our economy that, for example, this is just one effect. A lot of people who have 2 earner income households, one of the people is going to drop out of the workforce. That's why we're going to have a labor shortage. people, because of the productivity gains, you're going to be able to afford things. We're going to have, I predict we'll actually have deflation of certain core, assuming we let this technology play out and don't, hamstring it with regulation too early.
Oh, thank God. I mean, hopefully not. That would be terrifying. Yeah, regulation is always hampering innovation, Just let it run its course. This is also the point of billionaires promoting lowering tax for the poor, a band-aid to assuage revolt. Yeah, no, they just don't want you to even believe there is an opportunity or any value in increasing taxes for them or increasing taxes at all. They're fine if you pay no tax. They don't give a shit. Oh, okay. The government services are worse off. When is the last time this motherfucker used a government service? You know what I mean? Beyond like roads and shit. And if it gets to that, they'll go and yell at the government to fix it, and then the government will fix it, right? He's already doing AI podcasts. Wait, what? Amazon Premium Alexa service can now generate custom AI podcasts on demand. Turn any topic you're curious into a podcast episode ready in minutes. Wait, what? The Rise and Fall of Rome, the podcast? What the fuck? Dude, that's crazy. Dude, you know what's really funny? I just never stop thinking about the fact that all of the things that AI is doing are things that we were supposed to do. It's not doing any of the things that were supposed to lighten the burden of the labor force. All the route tasks, all the menial labor you have to do. And then when you go home on your journey home, okay, if you're lucky enough to, ride a bus, if there's any public transit whatsoever, in your car when you're driving back, you listen to an AI podcast. We are literally serving the machines at that point. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense.